Welcome to Unfractured Podcast. I'm your host, Amadis, man, and we talk about everything from love, from relationships to friendships, anything that caused you to get a fracture inside your life. But what we always say here at Unfractured is what you reveal, you can heal. So let's jump into the show.
Then we gonna see some things. It's inevitable, you know. Okay now we gon' see some highs and we gon' see some lows. We gon' see some friends and we gon' see some foes.
On today's topic, we want to talk about depression, right? So this is very close and near and dear to my heart. Very near and dear to my heart. Because of the fact that I went through depression at my own time. But I believe it was at a point that I wasn't able to realize that I was going through depression. It was some things that I had to further go through to understand what was really going on, right? And I started to look at certain things. I started to read and I started to do a lot of research that really exposed the fact that I was really going through depression. I didn't even know it. So I remember getting to a time where I didn't smile the same as I used to. That was probably like 2015, 2016, something like that. But I really didn't know how to identify it. I was like, okay, cool, keep it moving. Like, you got work to do. You got kids to raise. So you don't really have time to section off and focus on what you're going through and how to process it. And I'm saying I was raised up in the Black community. So we wasn't necessarily taught how to heal. A lot of stuff that we went through, only thing we was taught to keep going. You feel what I'm saying? When I got the gun pulled on me at the age of 10 and the dude had the gun to my head, like, we didn't have a sit down talk and everybody tried to understand exactly what was going on and what happened in that whole situation. It was just like, okay, cool, it happened. Get up in the next morning, go to school. Like, yeah, that's it. And I was just like, dang, like, we really been through some trauma stuff that we never really talked about because it wasn't a space to talk about. It was like, keep moving, period. We got other stuff we need worried about. We worried about money. We're worried about, you know what I'm saying, trying to pay the rent on the first. So a lot of times we didn't prioritize our mental health because we really didn't know what mental health is. A lot of people just been exposed to mental health in 2022, right? So when I went through this thing and I discovered like I wasn't the same person in 2015, like nobody was able to give me content on that or why they feel like I wasn't the same person. Nobody really like identified it. I identified it, but I still couldn't sit down and like, let me prioritize time for myself to get myself right. So that way I'm able to operate in a way that I'm healing and I'm learning how to be the best version of myself. So me not learning how to do that, I put that aside like everything else. Like, okay, cool. Let's keep on going because, yeah, I don't have time for to really do all of that. Like, I can't go to therapy. I'm making money, but I can't go to therapy. Like, that's just take too much money. Even like in reality, in hindsight, if I would have did that at that moment, I would have been a healthier version of myself. So a lot of mistakes that I made in that particular time, like I would have never made them. I would have never been to the point where I was spiraling out of control. So after I pushed past through that situation, boom, 2017, my dad died. And it was so crazy because the day before my dad actually passed, like we actually had a conversation to the point where he called me and he was just like, my dad really never called me sometimes. But this particular time, he called me out the blue. I missed his call and I never really do that. But I missed his call. So when we talked, I was like, hey, Dad, what's up, man? And so I was really getting on him because I haven't talked to him in a minute and I was worried about him. So I'm like, bro, what's up? I didn't talk to you in like a week, man. Because I didn't really go too long without talking to my father. Like, this is what kind of relationship we built over the years. Due to the fact, like, my father wasn't there for me as a kid, I had to really go back into the past and think about all the stuff he went through and why he wasn't able to be a father. And once I started to learn the fact that my dad was an addict. So my dad wasn't able to prioritize his addiction and me at the same time. It was either the addiction or it was me. And a lot of people are not strong enough to fight off those demons to say, well, I need to get healthy for my child. So when me and my dad had that last talk, we became best friends. I mean to tell you, best friends. Me and my dad can talk about anything. And I caught myself falling in love with my father again, and we was able to be best friends. And I was like, dang, like this is what it feels like to have a father. Like this would have what it feels like to be able to talk to somebody and him to be able to convey exactly what I was going through at the times that I was going through them. And I didn't understand none of that stuff until I had kids. So when me and my dad was able to be on the same wavelength and understand each other, I'm like, oh my God, like, God, I never knew that I can love a person like this. And it felt like I found my best friend all over again. And then 2017, when my father passed, man, it was a whirlwind of emotions. Like, it was so many emotions that I didn't know how to process it. And I was to a point, like I had to take leave of my job to the point I had to process it. I had to do my dad's funeral. Not only that, dealing with the fact that he had a disgruntled girlfriend, 2 of them at that point, 2 old, calculating old women, like going back and forth with each other, like trying to figure everything out. Nobody took in consideration how I was feeling. They only like prioritized themselves. And I'm like, dude, y'all maybe have just lost a lover. Like I just lost my dad in the whole situation. So just imagine how I felt. And then it was to the point, like I didn't really have my dad until I was 20, in my 20s. So I don't think like a lot of people try to character, like really think about the pain, really think about the mental state that I was in that particular time. And then trying to bury my dad, and then my mom and my fiance at the time wasn't getting along. She was pregnant. So I'm definitely going through a lot of things right now. I'm like, God dang it. My hand broke. And then it's like, yeah. And what really made me go through a lot, because even in that time of despair, that time of not knowing the unknown and not really knowing what was going on, like she wasn't trying to be there. She was like, oh, I've never had a parent to pass, so I don't know how to be there for you. So me in that moment, I'm like, God dang it, like I'm not asking you for that much. Only thing I'm asking you to do is just be here for me. And she wasn't able to do that because she wasn't able to empathize exactly where I was coming from. She wasn't able to empathize exactly where I was coming from, right? And that was a hard pill to swallow. Going on about my regular day after my dad passed and all that kind of stuff, and tried to bury it in the back of my mind, never really dealing with the pain and the hurt and just the emotions. And I buried it thinking that this stuff would never come back up again. So I just kept moving. But I start to experience life. And then in 2020, that's when I experienced the separation of me and my ex-wife situation. A lot of the situation had to do with me, right? I'm gonna take accountability. I'm not gonna be the guy that's like, oh, okay, I just experienced this depression because somebody just absolutely did me wrong. No. Because I had a lot of things that I never dealt with. I had a lot of things that I was putting bandages on just to mask the whole situation, that I never really took and sat down and was like, dang, bro, you never really overcame rejection. You really never learned how to heal. And I never really learned that kind of stuff because, like I said, it didn't come with a manual. It was something that I was like just learning on the fly. So when the relationship subsided and I had to deal with the fact that me and her wasn't going to be together, I was like, I was kind of like depressed about that. But the most depressing thing for a father is to experience that your child is not in close proximity, that you're no longer able to feel their touch on a regular basis. You're no longer able to experience them grow. And so for me, that was the ultimate push into depression. So I did a, good job masking it because didn't nobody really know it. Like I could remember vividly, right? Experiencing guilt, experiencing where I should have just shut my mouth and shut up and did this and just playing all these different things in my head that I used to ride on my lawn care service truck. This when I was working in a lawn care service, right? In Swanee. And I could remember like crying the whole entire time. I can be going from one yard to another. Like I could be crying the whole time in my truck. Soon I get off at the yard and go and speak to the customer and all that kind of stuff. I was just like, hey, how are you? You know, I'm coming to cut your lawn. I'm Amadis, da 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 da. And I played it well. The whole time I had so many different emotions like running through my head. Like I started to lose weight uncontrollably and nobody knew it. So I tried to pass it off because I didn't want anybody to know like what I was really going through. I try to pass it off like, oh man, this new workout program and all that kind of stuff. Because it's like, you don't want to necessarily look like what you've been through. So I just try to pass it off like, dog, y'all see this new workout program I'm on, da da da, I'm eating healthy, I'm eating right. And really I wasn't. It came down to where the place I was living at, they raised the rent and I wasn't able to afford that place anymore. So just being a grown man and having to come to the realization that you could no longer afford your living situation. So now you gotta go and live with your mom. Oh my God, you talk about something depressing. You talking about something that makes you feel lower than low to say, dang, bro, like I'm in my 30s, living with my mama. I don't think like people really process that. Like, cause my whole image was in who I was, the money that I made, the car I drive, all of that kind of stuff. I used to have Chargers, I used to have a Genesis, I used to have all kind of cars, you feel me? Like, I used to have like 50,000 in the bank. And when I had that, like, I didn't feel like I was going through anything. Like, that kind of covered up the pain that I was feeling because I was able to, when I felt some type of way, I used to buy my way out of it. But God got to a point, he's like, you know what, bro? In order for me to really reach you, I'm going to have to put you to a spot that you are very vulnerable. And when a man is defined, most men are defined by the money they have and the job that they have. And my job was paying me close to nothing when I went to the job I was working at. Like, the lawn care service paid me pretty good because I did a lot of overtime and because I really didn't have nobody at home. So I had to do, or I was doing overtime because then they got to a point they cut it. I was doing overtime because I had nothing to go home to. I loved the house that I used to stay in, but I couldn't enjoy it without me making extra money to pay child support, to pay the rent, and to pay her money for child support too. So I was like, oh my God, like, you talking about drowning? Bro, I was drowning to the point where I was making money at the other job, but that was practically nothing. Then on top of that, I got my car repossessed. Like, just imagine all of that happening. But I began to adopt, like I ain't gonna say adopt, but I was already speaking negative connotations to myself, right? So I began to adopt even more this, if it ain't one thing, it's another kind of mentality. And with me adopting that mentality, that really did a lot too, because I wasn't speaking life into the situation. I always had negative connotation type talk to myself. But a couple years ago, God revealed these things to me. Like, bro, you always looked at the glass like it was half empty instead of half full. Like, in these last couple years, like, God has revealed so many different things to me. In my depression, in my darkest hour, God has revealed so many things to me. And I'm like, oh my God, like, I can't believe this about myself. I was putting people before my relationship with him. So he definitely need to break me from that. But he took me through depression all like he took me through depression so I can get here to be able to have this conversation with you. And I'm gonna be real with you, like, right? Me exposing these things about myself is very vulnerable. It doesn't make me feel comfortable. It doesn't like, oh, okay, laugh at my pain. No. It is something that's very uncomfortable. It is something that is cringing. It is something that makes me emotional at times because I have to actually not only live with those things in my head, but I have to confess it with my mouth. So with that being said, I didn't understand why he took me through so much. But I feel like if he wouldn't have took me through the stuff that he's taken me through, I wouldn't be able to have these conversations to help other men get through depression, to help other men get through anxiety, to help other people to get through depression and anxiety, or just to understand that life isn't perfect, but we have to go through it sometimes in order to get to the final destination. So me talking about my car getting repossessed, me having to come to terms and live back with my mom, not having the best financial situation, like it is very grueling, but it's something that needed to happen so that I can be vulnerable. And not only that, I can prioritize me again. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm not sitting here in front of you just because I want to give an amazing, immaculate word and I just want to just talk about this success story. Dude, a lot of that stuff, I'm still in it right now. I'm just gonna be honest with you. And a lot of people are not gonna admit that to you. I'm still in a lot of those places right now, trying to figure them out with the help of God and my own mental sanity. Even with the podcast, like I didn't necessarily want to do this because it's not a very sexy story to tell that you got your car repossessed. You know what I mean? You lost your wife, like you lost your kid, like all of these things are not sexy. So I didn't necessarily want to tell it, but God, like, you have to share this message. And he has given me a task to carry out. And it's like the more I'm disobedient to the task and I'm slow to obey, the longer he's going to take to get me out of this situation that I'm going through. The longer he's going to take to deliver me, because I just don't want people to judge me. And when it came down to, I heard people say, like, people are going to judge you no matter what you do, whether you're doing good or whether you're doing bad. So I'm like, God, just give me the strength. God, give me the bravery to deliver and to talk, even when it's uncomfortable for me. And I'm learning how to step out of my comfort zone to be this person to tell you guys this stuff. So, man, let's transition the show. I'm going to give you 5 things that I did in order to help me overcome depression. For one, affirmations. Like, those are so important that you just keep repeating a lot of those things to yourself. So that way you are putting these things in your memory bank, where when you feel the times of despair, when you feel the time of inadequacy, you can always revert back to these things. So now you have something to hold you up and you are able to encourage yourself. Number 2, which should have been number 1, but my connection with God, like me praying, me having a spiritual foundation was definitely one of the top things for me. Number 3, meditation was also one of the things. Like, I get myself in a quiet position so that way I'm able to hear, I'm able to experience, I'm able to remember the things I've been through, but also the way that God has gotten me through it. Number 5, I would start journaling, start writing things down that can give me, that can help me process what I'm going through throughout the day. Number 5, working out. working out has been a slick blessing to me, right? Because it gives you a chance to express yourself in a positive manner that can not only make you strong, but also help you to learn some discipline. So the I am quote is, I am confident in my abilities and myself to manifest a better life. The I am quote again is, I am confident in myself and my abilities to manifest a better life. Man, I tell you guys, like, if you need somebody to talk to, if you need somebody to pray with you, someone to laugh with you, you know what I'm saying? Don't be afraid to hit my line, you know what I'm saying? Just to connect with me. Like, comment, subscribe. Just be ready for next episode, dog. I'm gonna take you through a lot of different things that I experienced, but a lot of helpful things that gonna help you get through your situations, but also get you to a place of healing, because I had to do it and I'm still doing it. I'm in the midst of doing it. And I don't think we'll ever get to the point where we're not healing because of the trauma and a lot of things that we've been through, but together we can do it. So like I always say, what you reveal, you can heal. Man, I love you guys. All right.